Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Extra Podcast, a 10-minute show for the gardener on the go. I'm your host, Joey Baird, alongside my wife and co-host,
Holly Baird.
And this show is dedicated to the home gardener who wants to grow more food or has never grown at all and wants to learn. And this program is sponsored by
DollarSeed.com, where you can get all your herb, flower, and vegetable seeds for just $1 a pack. Organic seeds, just $1 a pack.
And by WillowSpringSoap.com. Handmade soaps using the cold kettle process using traditional methods. WillowSpringSoap.com. Last week we spoke about planning to plant for 2013. You can find that podcast on our website at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. On the right-hand side, there is a category for extra podcasts. Click on that and you'll be able to access that information. Today we're going to talk about preserving the items that we planted. So we've planned to plant, so we're going to talk about what we need to do with the items that we planted, just so we have a general idea whether you're a new gardener or maybe just garden for the first year and you want to start thinking about, I want to plant items in the garden that I can preserve, that I don't have to eat right away because they're going to go bad. So we're going to take a look at some of the basic items that you're going to grow in your garden for 2013 that you want to preserve. One being, and the methods that are related to that, whether it be canning, freezing, dehydrating, or just setting it on the shelf in the basement crawl space or in the cabinet. So we're going to talk about tomatoes first. Tomatoes can be, it's the apple of the garden. Everybody loves to grow tomatoes, whether it's one tomato in a container or 40 tomatoes or 50 tomatoes in the garden. Now there's a couple ways of preserving these tomatoes. One being, you can eat them right away. Two being, you can water bath can.
Yes, that's the easiest thing to do is to water bath can them. You add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice per quart or 1 per pint.
Now we've shown this on our video series on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Extras on our YouTube channel, which you can access through our website, and we've shown how easy it was to do it. Now there's other ways of going about preserving your tomatoes. You can dehydrate them, slice them thin, put them in the dehydrator or the oven, and basically make the sun-dried tomatoes. You could also possibly freeze them or not. Can you freeze them?
You can.
Okay.
It's
not really recommended, though, is it?
I think they taste kind of funny.
Okay. So you want to look at possibly water bathing, canning them. Now, let's go with another thing that we like to eat is peppers. Peppers can be, dehydrated. You can freeze peppers. Obviously, you can chop them up, put them in the freezer. You'd want to do the blanch procedure with them, which is?
You put them in hot water for, was it a minute?
A minute, yes.
And then you put them into an ice bath immediately. And
that stops the cooking, and you can bag them up, put them in the freezer. You can put them in an airtight vacuum seal, whatever you want to do. You could also pickle them.
Yes.
So there's, and cucumbers will be the next thing we speak about. We all like cucumbers in our salad, and you can grow a variety of different cucumbers in your garden, trellising if you're limited on space, but you can make them into pickles. Bread and butter pickles, dill pickles, and that does require a water bath system. Now, can you do refrigerated pickles?
Yes.
So you don't need a water bath.
And then you can do fermented pickles.
Fermented pickles, too. So you don't need a water bath canner to have pickles. But if you want that long-term storage, such as up to 12 months, you want to go the water bath canning method. Another thing that you could grow in your garden, which would be onions. Now, you can water bath onions. You can pickle the onions. But you can also just put the onions, let's say, in a crawl space, in a basement. You can store them that way as well, and they won't go bad. But you're not going to get a terrible long shelf life. You may get 3 or 4 months out of them. And that was, nature's designed that way to where you work all summer long.
Yeah, you want to cure them at room temperature for 2 to 4 weeks. When the necks are tight and the scales are dry, then it's a cold and dry climate. So you can go that route. You can pickle them, or you can dry them and hang them in your your basement crawl space. Put them in a pantry of some sort or another. Another thing that you can grow that requires no preparation for storage, whether method is you're looking at your butternut squash, you're looking at your spaghetti squash, winter squash. And the term being that it can store through the winter. Yeah, you don't have to do anything with it.
You want to bring it inside and cure it for 2 weeks at room temperature, which would be about 70 degrees. Once the outer skin gets more tough, then you can put it in your basement crawl space, cellar, and preserve it that way. Now, people will say that your butternut squash will last between 4 and 6 months. We've had butternut squash last over a year. So that's something to look at if you want to really pack in the butternut squash, which is a great treat. And you can eat that raw if you cut it very thin, or you can bake it or roast it in the oven or the grill. Another thing you can go about making or growing and preserving is potatoes. Mm-hmm. Potatoes are much like the butternut squash and the spaghetti squash. You can put them in your the best way to do it is put them underground, basement. They're designed to have the longevity of, keeping for that 3 to 6 month period to where until it gets warm again. Also pumpkins. Pumpkins, we've just got it out of the fall harvest, and properly stored pumpkins will keep for that 3 to 4 months based on the proper curing time and the place of storage over the winter months. We've had a pumpkin that I found over a year ago. I found it in early November of 2011. It's a white skinned pumpkin. It's still sitting in the basement perfectly fine as it just came off the vine. Now, obviously, we're not going to eat that pumpkin, but we're kind of in an experimental process to see how long that pumpkin will sit in the basement without going bad at all. What are some other things that you can store over the winter that you can grow in your garden?
Well, not necessarily things you could grow outside of your garden is like spinach. And you could grow that in herbs, and those you can grow on your, windowsill.
The herbs you can grow on your windowsill all year long.
Yeah, all year round.
Now, the spinach you spoke of, you grow a lot of it. Spinach and lettuce are opposites of one another, and I mean this by if you plant a little lettuce, it'll go a long way. Yeah. If you plant a little bit of spinach, it won't go very long. So you've got to really plant a lot of spinach to get spinach. But you're going to take about a week in the fridge is about all that's going to last if you don't eat it.
Beets you can store. You want to cut the tops off, and you can store them in your refrigerator in a refrigerator bag or a container for 5 months.
But you can also make refrigerated pickled beets as well. Mm-hmm. Diane Mum's,
or you can just pickle.
Diane Mum's videos. She's done that, made the pickled beets. It was her first time. Very exciting. She was very pleased about the results that she had on that. So you don't need a water bath canner. It is something that you may want to look into if you've never preserved in that method before. You can really pack a lot of stuff in jars and have a lot of great tasting vegetables that you've preserved all winter long.
And then you also can do cabbage. When the heads are compact and firm, you need to store it in a cold and moist place like a refrigerator, and that would be for 8 months.
8 months cabbage will store. Now,
that's kind of crazy.
That is, yeah. Also, or you can make freezer slaw if you have the freezer space. Again, not needing a water bath canner. You can make cold slaw like we do, and you can use the
I'm sorry, it's 5 months for cabbage.
5 months for cabbage.
Carrots are 8 months.
8 months, okay. Yeah. Yes.
You can store without tops. You want to leave the dirt on them.
Right.
And then in a cold and moist again.
So, and all of this comes about when Ray Grotex, he has a YouTube channel. He's obviously in Texas. He likes hot peppers. But he posted an image on his Facebook page, and it was a black and white image. I would say 30s, 40s was the image was taken. But it was of a cellar. And the shelves were full of canning jars, and Holly, you've seen this image that I've shown you, full of canning jars on one shelf, potatoes on another, all kinds of onions and winter squash. And that's the image that that's something, the skill that we have lost here in society in 2012, going on 2013. We rely too heavily on society to feed us when we need to feed ourselves by growing our own food, by whether it's a little bit on a balcony or as much as we can pack into a large garden or a field if that is readily available to us. So with that being said, the winter squash can store all winter long. What are some other things? Strawberries, you can freeze the strawberries. You can pick them, you can freeze them, and strawberries, depending on where you're at in the country, only happen for a certain period of time. Like here in Wisconsin, we only have about a 3 to 6 week window for strawberries based on if the temperature is right and the water conditions are perfect. So those are just a few of the items that you can be growing in your garden, and you can think about storing them long term over the winter months. Obviously, if you're going to grow things, you want to do your research and find out how best to store them so you get the most out of the products that you're growing. Again, this is the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Extra Podcast, a 10-minute show for the gardener on the go. We're nearly out of time, but again, this show is sponsored by DollarSeed.com for your flowers, vegetables, and herbs. All organic seeds, all only $1 a pack. That's DollarSeed.com. And by Willow Springs Soap Company, handmade soaps using the cold kettle process while using traditional methods. WillowSpringsSoap.com. Both of those will be in the show notes in the program. I'm Joy Baird.
And I'm Holly Baird.
And you can visit us at our website at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.